6:30 CHED Afternoons with Jaylen Nye. Weekdays at 2 on 6:30 CHED.
So we're going to switch gears here for a little bit because I want to dive into climate change. There's a new Ipsos poll that's been done for Global News that shows 77% of you, 77% of Canadians think something needs to be done about climate change, but about half of the population believes there's a need to weigh the cost to the economy when it comes to environmental efforts. And when it comes to extreme weather events, 84% of you are more concerned than 5 years ago. There has been a big shift in public opinion on climate change over the past year, and this summer's unprecedented heat wave, that heat dome over Western Canada that led to wildfires, drought, and the death of hundreds of people, I think really has played a big role in that shift. Climate scientists say we need to act now. Dr. Rick Smith is the president of the Canadian Institute for Climate Choices. Dr. Smith joining us this afternoon. Welcome to the show. Hello, are you there?
Oh, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Dr. Smith, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Nice to have you here. So you know what? Many people, lots of people have been waving the flag, warning about the effects of climate change for many years. And I think we are really starting to see a shift among the general population about the severity of it and the need to do something about climate change. Do you think that the past couple of years and the severe weather instances that we have had, especially this summer, might have something to do with it? Finally, people are saying, seeing is really believing.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. In fact, we've been talking to Canadians this summer right across the country, and we've reached a similar result as this recent Ipsos poll. Canadians have got to the point now where they realize that climate change is literally on their doorstep. It's not some far off thing that their grandkids maybe need to worry about. It's not some theoretical problem. Folks in BC are seeing it with wildfires. Folks in Alberta are smelling it in the smoke in the air. I'm in Toronto today, and Toronto this week is breaking 75-year-old heat records. Mm-hmm. It's just stifling how hot it is here in the east. So, these effects are taking different shapes depending on where you are in the country. But I think people are now realizing that climate change is a health issue. Climate change is a threat in the here and now to the well-being of their families.
I thought that it was interesting and not surprising, to be honest with you, in this Ipsos poll saying that, about half of the population believes there is a need to weigh the cost to the economy when it comes to environmental efforts. How do we balance that? I mean, when you look at, certainly Alberta here, and you look at the energy sector, which has fueled Canada's economy for decades now, there's a lot of people who get their backs up very, very quickly, obviously, when we get talking about climate change, when we get talking about greening the industry. How do we find this balance, Dr. Smith?
Well, I'm not surprised at that poll result. I mean, of course, we're still in the middle of this terrible pandemic. So many people have seen an impact on their livelihoods. And, of course, as Canadians, we're always interested in balancing our livelihoods with environmental policy or any other kind of policy for that matter. And the good news with climate change is we can do that. And in fact, a big part of what our organization does, working with groups across the country, is we're trying to look ahead to where the puck is going, where industry is going, the types of low carbon industry that's coming. And, a lot of these things are not going to happen overnight. Some of them are happening really quickly. I mean, the transition to electric vehicles, of course, is all around us. But it's very important that we make sure that the Canadian economy prospers in this transition ahead. I don't think it's an either or. It's not environment versus economy.
Dr. Rick Smith joining me this afternoon, the president of the Canadian Institute for Climate Choices, as we focus our Decision Canada coverage today on the climate. We know that United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the report that was released, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now.
That's right.
Yeah, it was, it was another one of those moments, some alarm bells going off. It was a real eye-opener for a lot of folks. And in it, they were talking about that the warming of the consequences of the warming of the planet have yet to be realized, but may now be unavoidable. I know that you wrote an article not too long ago saying, hey, you know what, we're kind of really on the precipice of, some real danger here, but you believe that it might not be too late, that the worst impacts of climate change can be avoided. Can you expand on that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sometimes with this climate change discussion, the debate kind of tends towards the doom and gloom, and it makes you sort of downright, like an ostrich. We all want to bury our heads in the sand. But yes, it's true. I mean, that IPCC report, that UN report that came out, had some really worrisome new information in it. I mean, it's the first time that organization has said, yes, we can convincingly say now, climate change science has gotten much better. We can now say that, yes, these extreme weather events in Canada, elsewhere in the world, are linked to climate change. I mean, that's a huge step forward. That report also concluded that the world is warming faster than expected. Mm-hmm. But and I tried to point this out in my article, what the report pointed out is if we start taking action now, if we start to accelerate the good things that are already happening, we can head off the worst of the warming to come. We can hand our kids a planet that's actually warming less than it is now. So the biggest variable in that report is what we do now as Canadians, as people. And the future is not written.
I'm just writing down your words, actually, Dr. Smith. The biggest variable is what we do right now, and I think that's a really important point that you make there. Before we're out of time, I wanted to ask you. I know, you don't like to dive into politics specifically, given the back or the the stand of your organization. But I'm curious to know what you are watching for on the campaign trail and from the next federal government, whichever party forms the next government?
Well, I think the good news here is that all political parties in this country now agree that climate change progress is important, is necessary, and needs to be accelerated. So, yes, parties are approaching it in their own different ways. Yes, they may be disagreeing about this target or that target. But there's been a huge change. I mean, going right back to your comments at the beginning of the show. Yeah. As Canadians have become more concerned, as Canadians have become more convinced that climate change is a problem right here, right now, not surprisingly, we've seen all parties get their acts together. And, whatever party wins on September 20th, we look forward to some real spade work on climate change this fall, headed up to the very important UN meeting in November. And beyond, because that's what Canadians expect.
Dr. Smith, I sure appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I look forward to having a conversation with you down the line again. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks very much. Have a good rest of the day.
Take care. Dr. Rick Smith is the president of the Canadian Institute for Climate Choices. The biggest variable is what we do right now, he says. So what are the parties' platforms when it comes to climate change? What are they looking at? What are they promising? What are they not promising?